Hello everybody, this is MrYourWilly for another video tutorial. This time I'm going to show you how to set up a Slayer game type, basically how to set up the rules for any custom game. Now if you haven't seen how to set up a Slayer map, go ahead and click that funky little box in the upper left hand corner there that shows the island, and it'll bring you right to that video. If you guys have seen that video or you already know how to make a Slayer game type and you want to know more about the options, this is the perfect tutorial for you because I'll go in a lot of detail on it. I'm going to try and make it as short as possible, but the last time I recorded this it went over 20 minutes and I said okay, I need to try and speed this up. So what you need to do is you need to be in custom games and you need your game type to be a Slayer game. And when I say a Slayer game, it doesn't matter what one of these options you choose. That just depicts on what the base setting is going to be. Classic Slayer is, I believe every time I play it, it forces people who choose elites to be elite. Same with elite Slayers forces people who are elites to be Spartans. Same with elites, forces people who choose Spartan as a choice, forces them to be elites. Same, with SWATs, it's headshots, those kind of rules are preset into it. And this one has the loadouts already preset into it. So you choose the one that you want to base your map off of. Then you go here into game options, and this is where you set up all the rules around your map. Score to win is how many points or how many kills it's going to take to get it. Teams is, are you going to have teams? Is it going to be a free-for-all? Obviously, disabled is free-for-all. Then we get these three inside menus. There are menus inside of this menu. We got the classic Slayer, weapons, generals, and loadouts. Leaders. So you go into classic Slayer option, and this is where your pointing system comes in. Do you want people to get points from killing? Do you want people to get points for dying? Or do you want them to get subtracted points from dying? You could have it where the only way you can get points is killing, and then if you die you get subtracted points, so you actually get penalized for dying. You can set it up that way. Suicides, like if a kill ball kills you or if you get killed by the guardians, that's all considered suicide. So if you have a game like my push war map where the only way of getting a point is by getting rolled over by a kill ball, you set that to -1, you set these to 0, there are no points, and that's how I set up that rule type. Betrayal points, killing your friend. Leader points is for killing the leader. So if you want to give somebody who kills the top dog, an extra little bone, go ahead and do that. Headshots and melees, assassinations, splattering by hitting by vehicles, all those things you set up here to figure out how you want your point system to work. For weapons and vehicles, this is like if you set up your map to work for completely different game types and you have weapons or like that kind of stuff on the map, you can set map default, or you can say you only want those human weapons to show up, or so on and so forth. So you can even set up, even though your map is set up for a wide variety of weapons, you can dictate what type of weapons you want for this game type. The primary and secondary weapon you can set up here if you want, but I'll show you another place to set that up. Grenades and vehicles are all the same as weapon. What do you want as the default on it? Do you want vehicles to never blow up? Do you want vehicles to be able to be blown up? What abilities are you going to allow, which is like the armor abilities? Do you want turrets, power-ups? Do you want them on the map? That kind of stuff. Custom power-up traits. This is where you want to set up those custom power-ups, like my 30 Days and Nights map, which I'll explain in more detail on another tutorial. I set that up here, and you can set up everything from how the shield and health, the weapon and damage, the movement, the sensor, and the appearance. You can set all that up of what happens to the guy who picks up that power-up, and the duration of how long it takes. So, does it last 10 seconds, 15 seconds like my Pac-Man map, 30 seconds like my hide-and-seek map, however you like. But the max is 90 seconds, so, a minute and a half, that's the most you can do for a custom power-up. Now, general settings, this is the base player and all that. You want to set that up here. So how many rounds do you have? If you have one round, once the score is met, so let's just say 15 kills, once that is met, it's the end of the game. But if you set up 2 rounds, when the first 15 kills are met, it's a new round and the side switch. So whoever was red team is now on the blue team side, and whoever is on blue team is now on the red team side, which is really nice when you have one of those maps that people feel like one side's more powerful than the other side. Put it to 2 rounds and make it a very limited score, like maybe 10 or 15 kills. That way it's still close to being 25 kills like a normal game, but you switch sides halfway through it, so you feel like you're being more fair to everybody, that even though one side's more powerful, it switches halfway through. Time limit's pretty evident. How long is it gonna last? I always set a time limit. I never say never, just because it is annoying, especially if you're stuck with just you and 3 people. Some games last forever. You want to limit that. So I usually make it 10 minutes. Default is usually what I set it to, but sometimes I'll make it shorter if I want the game to last or go faster. You know, sudden death, what happens if the 2 teams are tied at the end? Do you want them to have 15 seconds to make up that point or whatever? Now this is where I was telling you about the base player traits, is what is that person going to be when they start the game? And this is where I said the weapon and damage, or the weapon starting in secondary. This is where you want to set that up. And the reason why is just because this is the base player, so might as well set it up in one area and remember that, instead of setting it up here in weapons and vehicles. Because see, hammer and DMR, I just set that up in the other one. It changes it in both. But you might as well just get ingrained that you want to set the players here. But you can do it either way, it's up to you, whatever your preference is, but I always set it here. You know, weapon, melee modifier, how much damage do they do when they punch you? More damage, less damage than usual. Same with the damage modifier. This is how much damage their guns do, more or less. You can basically make them do like no damage by shooting, but you have to punch, and then give them like a pistol or something, and then that way only punching will hurt somebody. Set that up as a game type. Starting equipment is, you know, what armor abilities you got, what kind of grenades do you have, is it infinite ammo, is it a bottomless clip where you don't have to reload, weapon pickup enabled, disabled, and weapon usage, do you want it to be normal or do you want it to be unlimited? Like my jetpacks in some of my games, I have unlimited weapon usage for that. Movement, player speed, slower or faster. Jump height, do you want them to, you know, 100% is always the on change values for these. Do you want them to be lower or higher on these? Now I had a friend ask me, can I please explain jump height and that kind of stuff in more detail. Jump height is how high do you jump. Let's just say, for whatever's sake, you jump 5 feet. Now if you increase this to 200%, now you jump 200% times your normal, so you jump 10 feet. You fall and go up the same speed. It like you don't jump 10 feet the same, like if you jump and you reach the 5-foot mark in 1 second, I know that's extreme, you won't reach it in that, you'd reach it probably in half a second. And then when you jump to 10 feet, whatever it took you to reach that 5 feet mark, it will reach twice as that to take the 10 feet mark, and if that makes sense to you. It's basically you're jumping the same speed, but you're going higher. Gravity, on the other hand, if you make this go to 50%, you're jumping much slower. So if you have it at 100%, you'll still jump that 5 feet, but it'll take you twice as long to get to that height and then get to the ground. If you do 200%, because the gravity affects you, it takes shorter. But because you have heavier gravity and you jump the same, you are actually jump shorter. Same with this, because you have lighter gravity but your jump power is the same, you actually jump slightly higher. But if you fall off of a building, you'll fall much lighter and you won't hit the ground as hard. So that's the difference between height and gravity. And vehicle usage, you know, are you passenger, gunner, owner, so that type of stuff is there. Sensor, you can either turn off the sensor altogether, you can make it so you only see allies, or normal mode, which is, you know, you see allies and you see enemies, but if they're crouching or moving slowly or not moving at all, you won't see them on the radar. And enhanced mode sees them anytime, If they're crouching, moving slowly, or even standing still, you'll see them in enhanced mode. Typically I make my meters 25 meters because anything more than that will make it so that the radar just shows little red dots instead of the triangles and shaded circles to mean higher and lower than you. And you can go to 150, but those are like tiny minute little pinpricks on the radar. So if you want to screw them up and make it so that you can see everybody in enhanced mode but you don't know exactly where they are, go to 75 or 150 and that will help with that. Appearance, you can force the people to be whatever appearance you want. Do they have camo? Do they have waypoints to show for allies or everybody? Is their name visible or not? And that means if I look at this person, can I see their name above their head? And if I say no name, that means when I look at my ally or my friend, you can't see their name. Or I can make it where you only see your ally's name, but if you look at an enemy, you won't see who it is you're looking at. Default is visible to everybody. Force color, you can make them bright purple or gold or whatever you want them to be, or that green zombie color. Now Spartan loadout and elite loadouts, you gotta remember this is when you're doing Slayer, Infection, and all those game types, you always work with tier 1. When I make the infected version, I'll show you the only time that you make a difference is Infection and Invasion, and I'll show you when or why you would use that. But you use tier 1 and you get 5 loadouts, and each loadout has a name, and you can pick any name that you want. There's some normal names, or Angel, Zombie, Ling Ling, all that kind of stuff in there. This is how you force their weapon to be different. So even if you tell the base player to be a certain weapon, you can change their weapons using loadouts or their equipment using loadouts. But you want to make sure that if you've just made all this, you want to change this from hidden to not hidden, because even if you've made these changes, if you don't change it to not hidden, you won't be able to see that loadout. Now let's pretend I just did all 5 loadouts. When you go to elite, you want to make them the same, and the only reason why you want to make the name the same, the weapon the same, and all that stuff is because I know the name and all this isn't the same. I can't remember what I chose for the last one. But the reason why you want to do that is if a friend of yours is playing as an elite and you forget to set that up, they'll either have no loadouts whatsoever, or if you used a different base setup, like I just use classic Slayer, but if you use a different one as your starting point, then they might have an energy sword, where you don't want them to have an energy sword, you want them to have a DMR for that loadout. So make sure that the elite and the Spartan loadout's the exact same. Respawn setting is if I die, how long does it take for me to respawn? If I kill myself, how many more seconds do I have to wait? And if I kill my friend, how many more seconds are going to be tacked on? So if I kill like 2 of my friends, I'm going to have 10 seconds on top of the 5 seconds. And if I just fell off a cliff and killed myself, there's another 5 seconds. So that's going to take 20 seconds for me to respawn. If you want them to have lives, like only 1 life or 5 lives or whatever you want, that's how you set that up here. And if their lives are out, they won't respawn. And you can set up advanced stuff like synchronize with team or respawn time growth. Every time that you die, you have 2 more seconds or 15 more seconds added to your time, so it takes longer and longer to respawn. And this is where you can set up, like, for 5 seconds after you respawn, I want you to have invulnerability so you don't get spawn killed, and you can move 300% so you can get back in the battlefield really quickly. But it only lasts for 5 seconds or 3 seconds. You can even set it up for 1 second if you want. But, that's where you set that kind of stuff up. Team change, I usually allow it unless some jerks are being really annoying and switching teams back and forth a lot. And friendly fire, I usually disable this just because friendly fire annoys me. Sometimes I keep it on, but I usually disable it. Leader traits is like, hey, I'm the top dog, I got 5 more kills than anybody else. What happens to me? Typical is absolutely nothing. But these appearance, movement, all that's just like the typical ones. So if you want them to be hindered, oh, you're the top dog, you don't have radar. Also, you're gonna be a bright pink color, and you're gonna have a waypoint over your head that's visible to everybody. But you do have poor camo. You can do that kind of stuff to the top dog if you feel like it. Just make sure that you always save as new and because you don't want to make all these settings, forget to save, and then nothing's gonna happen because it's not there anymore. That'd be really annoying. If you make these settings, like let's say you just saved it, but you want to make a minute change, like let's say you want to try making it, go into general settings here, and you want the bass player to maybe have slightly more damage resistance. You don't have to save, you can just back right out and start the game, and you can play it with those settings. But when you turn off your Xbox, or if you choose a different game mode and then go back to your Slayer mode that you just made, those settings that you just changed won't be there anymore. I hope this helped you. It was a deep run through of every single menu, but the reason why is I'm going to use this as a point to for all my other game setups. So use this as an example, and I hope that some of the things I taught you in here helped you out. And if you have any questions, leave a comment below, subscribe as always, and if you wish to see any of my other video tutorials, click the link up there on the right hand corner saying menu, and it'll bring you to the interactive menu. It only works if you have annotations on, so sorry people who are using your smartphones and all that, it won't work, but you can see the other tutorials on my tutorial playlist. So this is MrYourWilly signing off.